Blenders, and welcome to episode number 221 of Real Blend, a podcast that will always be the love to your thunder, Kevin McCarthy. I'm Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at Cinema. That was nice. And on this week's show, the box office continues to soar this summer. We are going to talk Stranger Things spoilers. So hopefully you guys caught up on the last two episodes that dropped most recently, as well as we're going to give our reviews of Thor, Love and Thunder, and they are going to be kind of divided, as you guys, but not that
divided. I don't think we're that far off. I think we're just There's just
We're on
little tease.
We're on two different sides of, I would say, the same coin.
Right.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
I think Sean's on a different coin than Gabe and I are.
Well, I'll explain that because something happened to me as I was sort of going through that. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let me introduce the guys as well too. Starting with Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington D.C. Hello, Kev. How are you?
Sean, Gabriel, good to see you guys. And I'm excited to talk about Stranger Things. I think this is probably one of the more cinematic television events that we've had in a long time. So, and it just makes me happy that there's so many people talking about Metallica right now. They have the number 2 song in the entire, all of iTunes, Master of Puppets. I'm like, that song came out like decades ago. I've been listening to that track. I've seen that track live since I was 12 years old. But to see it now, all these kids watching Stranger Things and going, who's Metallica? And then they find out and go back to that record. Hell yeah.
Also, perfect use of that song.
So good. In this show. So good.
Perfect use of that song. And Mr. Jake Hamilton is on vacation. So Gabe Kovacs is stepping up into the third seat officially. Hello, Gabe. How are you?
I am great. Happy to be here.
Good.
And we've all seen everything, which is cool. Like all of us have seen Thor and all of us have seen Stranger Things. So these are two topics that are like, obviously, like, we're excited to talk about. We have a lot to say.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be a well-informed show this week.
Hopefully
you're watching us on YouTube. If you are, thank you for joining us. Please head down and hit subscribe. A bunch of people checked out the Tom Hanks interview, which was really, really great. And we picked up a bunch of subscribers from that. We're going to have some really interesting ones interviews coming up, which we don't want to really tip our hat to just yet until they come together. But some major things in the hopper. And of course, we are available in all the different places where you get your audio podcast needs met. Don't forget to check out the premium show, which drops every Monday. If you're a premium subscriber, it costs you $5 a month. You get an ad-free version of the show. You get the extra segment that comes on Mondays where we normally play some type of a game. And this week's game is going to be a really fun one that was handed to us by a fan named Donovan, who came up with a really interesting game show that we're going to play on Monday. And then, of course, you get a newsletter from me every other Friday. I think I wrote one last week. I'll get another one too this week. So check the description for information on where you can sign up for the premium service as well and get more Real Blend.
Also, I want to mention because Sean mentioned our Tom Hanks interview for Elvis with the massive success of Top Gun. If you haven't heard our interview with Joseph Kosinski yet, the director of Top Gun Maverick, obviously Spiderhead and Tron Legacy and Oblivion, Only the Brave, an underrated movie of his with Josh Brolin and Miles Teller. Check it out because there's a lot of cool information in there. Even though people are seeing the movie, not everybody knows how it was made. Not everybody knows that there were those 6 cameras in the cockpit capturing those flying sequences. And I think now that people have seen it multiple times, if you haven't checked it out, Kosinski gives us a bit of a masterclass in filmmaking in terms of aspect ratio changes and IMAX shots and cameras, because the actors were essentially the cinematographers in those moments. So if you haven't checked that one out, go to YouTube or obviously find our show on that. But he was a great guest. He's a big Real Blend fan too. So.
It's just bizarre to me. Yes. Yeah. So Joe, if you're listening, hello. Thank you again for coming on the show. We really appreciate you. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about the percentage of Top Gun's drop at the box office, which is ridiculous.
Huge.
Yeah. Because it just means repeat viewing from people who are going back to check it out again and again and again. I think appreciate the fact that they filmed in a way that the big screen makes it, integral to the experience of checking out that story. But in the meantime, over the July 4th weekend, it belonged to Minions. And I'm not surprised in the fact that it led at number 1 because it's a family movie and Lightyear didn't necessarily catch on with families. So I think a lot of families were looking for a place to escape over the July 4th holiday weekend. The Minions franchise has Despicable Me franchise and the Minions franchise has absolutely been enormous for Universal. But with the Rise of Gru doing $125 million in 4 days. That is shocking to me. Shocking. I didn't expect it to do that well. I still felt, even with the indications of Doctor Strange and the work and the money that Top Gun has been earning, that there was some trepidation about going back to the theaters. But I'll tell you guys, even yesterday, I took Brendan to go see The Black Phone, and just for fun, while we were like on the app checking for our seats, I poked into the multiplexes that had Elvis and Top Gun and Jurassic and Minions, and they were all full. Just full, like no available seats.
Yeah.
And this is for like the 420 screening on July 4th, on Monday, July 4th. So people are going to the movies, and Minions absolutely proved that.
And going into the weekend, I read a stat that I couldn't believe, that the first, I don't know if I told you guys this stat. If not, I kind of want to see if you can guess it. Or did we do this in the show? We might have. I
don't know.
Did I ask you guys last week how much money the Despicable Me franchise has made before Minions came out?
Oh, no.
All right. This will be a little fun question. All right. So there's 4 movies prior, right? Despicable Me 1, 2, 3, and Minions. I want you to give me.
Do they count Ready Player One's box office?
No. No, but just those 4 prior to Minions.
Okay.
If you had to guess the worldwide gross of those 4 films,
worldwide,
just up until Minions release, what do you think the Despicable Me franchise has made worldwide? Those 4 movies.
The fact that you're framing it this way, I feel like it's going to be like close to $3 billion or something.
So I was going to say 4 billion.
Yeah, or if not 4, yeah. I'm hedging. I'm hedging that like maybe one of those didn't work.
$3.7 billion. Think about that for 1 second. $3.7 billion. Now, going into it, you know, I read a story recently. I think it was in Variety, and I don't have TikTok, so I didn't follow this. But did you guys see there was like a trend that happened over the weekend where people were going to see Minions?
Suits?
It's called Gentle Minions, I think it was. What is it called?
You know, PJ and his friends did it. Like, I told you that like they went to go see the movie unironically. Now PJ didn't
unironically or ironically.
They kind of went unironically.
Oh, wow.
So
but
this is a trend. This is a big trend.
Yes, kids who grew up on Minions, because remember they're all essentially like 17, 18 now. That franchise has been around forever. Like that's their animated series for the most part. They decided that they called themselves the Gentle Minions instead of Gentlemen. Yeah. And they showed up in droves dressed in formal wear. And in some cases it was tuxedos.
I can't believe
this. In some cases
this.
It was suits. They had cigars, and they went in groups. Now that's the kind of viral buzz. In groups.
There we go.
And then there were images on the news where they were, this is for the YouTube folks, where they were sitting waiting for the movie to begin with their fingers tented. And they just
never
made it a
knew.
thing.
So here's a point I wanted to
base.
make. And this doesn't take anything away from the money that they've made. I would guarantee you that any producer on the planet doesn't care if someone's hate watching or ironically watching their movie. If they bought a ticket, they don't care about that difference. Right. But I do feel like with this number being so large, 125 million, there were a couple points I wanted to ask you. One, I'm curious if that's a perfect storm of there's enough interest for families and younger audiences, and there's this older audience of kids that's now, I would call that watching it ironically. Like they're doing it for a joke. Not that they're making fun of the movie or whatever. I don't necessarily know how they feel about the movie, but they're there for the meme. They're there for the joke. I would think that qualifies as ironic viewing. Yeah. That, to me, that feels like a perfect storm that obviously Lightyear didn't get.
But what, that's the question though, because what you just described is fascinating to me, because Lightyear also has this capability, right? Because you have four Toy Story movies before it, and you have generations of people who watched it and now have kids.
But we're on the verge of sort of making the classic boardroom mistake of people in suits sitting down and saying, we want to make a viral video. Like that's not a thing that you just generate. It's a thing that happens.
Well, that's what Sony wanted to do with Morbius. Sony wanted Morbius to become a viral reaction.
Whatever, however you say. That's the sort of thing. That's the magic of the internet and of the moment. Is that, and I think Sean makes a good point of the kids who originally, genuinely were watching it and grew up on the original, couple of these that came out are old enough now that they're gentle minions, that they're participating in sort of the online culture of it. So I think that's not something necessarily Lightyear could do, because it's, you know, Toy Story came out.
But let me ask a question though. Those kids in suits, who did their viral bit, accounted for how much of the 125 million?
I'll tell you why it's a
2
lot.
million?
I'll tell you why it's a lot. I'll tell you why it's a lot. Because TikTok, I don't use TikTok, but I'm telling you right now, imagine like a 15-year-old kid seeing a video on TikTok of like kids going to see it and wanting to create their own video of it. I don't know how much percentage, but I mean, in terms of like going back to the Lightyear discussion, because I think this is an interesting discussion because we're looking at two properties here that have very healthy box offices, very big movies that were big for a lot of people. Lightyear, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people don't think it connected. You could, you know, Tim Allen not voicing it, the convoluted idea of what the movie was about, because, you know, they explained the movie right at the beginning of the film. That was the best marketing. Sure. I saw a tweet. I don't remember who it was. It was in an article that I read. I think it might have been Mike Ryan, who said something along the lines of like, the advertising, the beginning of Lightyear was the best advertising the movie had in its entire marketing campaign because it explained.
All they had to
I
say.
said this. We've covered this before, and I said this before,
right.
And I don't know why I'm defending Disney, but and they certainly did not sing this high enough, and I don't know why that is. But when they announced the movie, that title was exactly how they described it. They said this is the movie that they saw. Like when they announced that from the get-go, they at least said this is the movie that he saw. Like they gave that title card. They then, I agree, didn't reinforce that, but the message was there. I think it just was undercovered. And
there's an element to the Minions movie, real fast, that I think some people really find it funny.
They're
like,
great.
I think people find the Minions to be funny, and Steve Carell as Gru is funny.
And this one's a little bit less of a Minions movie, kind of, because this is more of a in terms of like
Rise of Gru,
right? Because what's funny is if you look at the box office, and I was researching this because I couldn't believe when I read this franchise had made 3.7 billion. I mean, we're talking about in the next couple days, this franchise is going to cost $4 billion. It's made 220 million worldwide. This one, Minions: The Rise of Gru.
That's not even merchandise.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
Forget
my
about
God.
Forget about
how many points do you think
and-
Carell has on the back end of this one?
Oh, especially on the fifth one. Well, look, so it's interesting. If you actually go through the history of these movies, the first one, again, this is a lot of money, but considering what it jumped to, I think the first one did like 550 worldwide, which is a lot of money.
But it was a brand new animation studio and everything, a brand new property.
Right.
That's not bad at all.
And you're introducing the Minions, and then boom. If you look at the second one, I think it crossed $1 billion. I mean, we're talking about doubling its box office profits. And then a third one did $1 billion and whatever. So I think but merchandising is fascinating. And I'm 38 years old. I love going to Ocean City, Maryland and playing this basketball game that you shoot the hoops. And then the toy I always grab if I win is a Minion.
Is a Minion?
Because there's a Minion named Kevin. And I remember, and I'm telling you that they got me, and I'm 38 years old, and I want a Minion toy in my house.
I do want to ask you guys before we move on. An element to this, I'm curious if this will become like a bellwether for holiday weekends through the rest of the year, given the last couple of years of whether it's families being apart, and just being unable to sort of fulfill that tradition that we always sort of hold up on holiday weekends, whether it's 4th of July weekend or Thanksgiving, Black Friday weekend, or the Christmas season or the holiday season in general, where they tend to sort of push movies out for families to get together and go see movies. And that's kind of a tradition. Do you think that given how big this weekend is and the Rise of Gru earns what it earns, do you think this might be a bellwether for sort of a surge in the holiday weekend tradition through the end of the year, now that people have had a couple years where they weren't able to do that?
Yeah, I think so. And especially like there was a stretch where Disney traditional animation cornered Thanksgiving holiday. Right. Because the Frozen films came out at that time. I know Moana came out around Thanksgiving. And they tended to have something in that slot. Now Marvel took over November for a little while, but there's no reason why they shouldn't have some sort of animated film ready to go. Now, some of these original animated features aren't necessarily connecting. And I'm trying to think of a good example of one that's like outside of the box of a sequel, like The Bad Guys that just came out recently, right? Like maybe it was because it was on Peacock or whatever the reason was,
right?
But it has all the same qualities that we're talking about, family entertainment, you know,
Right.
where there was a lack of it, that just doesn't connect. So I don't think it's just the fact that it's animated. It's something to do with the Minions franchise.
Right. And to Sean's point, Paws of Fury comes out next week. I don't know anybody. I mean, again, I'm sure it'll do fine. Now, Sonic. Okay, let's go to Sonic. Sonic's a good example, even though it's live action animation. It's still in that marketplace, right? So Sonic just crossed 400 million worldwide while still being on Paramount Plus and in theaters. Which is incredible to me. It makes me so happy that people were going to a theater, even though a movie's available on Paramount Plus at home after it came out. But in terms of that's a really interesting scale to look at, because Sonic did 400 million. So Minions will probably, I'm going to guess, cross $1 billion, I would imagine, just based on the other films. I could be wrong. You know, it just makes you wonder, like, the Minions is the X factor here, and there's no question. Like that has become a cultural phenomenon. That is a massive part of pop culture. Minions are a big deal outside of the films. They are something that means something to people outside of those movies in general. Just Minions are funny, and they're cute, and they're, you know what I mean? There's just something special about them. You know, I want to bring up a point real fast while we're on box office, because I find this really interesting. Is anybody having a better year than Paramount?
Oh, geez, they are crushing it with Sonic and Scream and Top Gun, and they had another one in there. Oh,
Jackass.
Lost City. Lost City was theirs. Jackass was theirs. Yeah, they've been on fire.
Good for them. I'm actually really happy for Paramount. I mean, Universal's crushing too, obviously. Jurassic World just crossed 800 million. Do you think, okay, this is a good question. Do you think Jurassic World crosses $1 billion? So here's why I asked that. So right now, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, is sitting at about 957, I believe.
Okay.
That probably will not make another $43 million to cross $1 billion. I don't know. It's on Disney Plus right now. I don't see that happening, but I could be wrong.
With Thor coming.
And I would imagine that Disney probably thought they had $1 billion film with Doctor Strange. And obviously, I think review wise, word of mouth. I mean, I know a producer of mine who hasn't been to the movies in 2.5 years that's gone to Top Gun 3 times. I mean, there's something happening with that film that has struck a chord.
There's just something to making a good movie. Like, there's something to making a movie that is undeniably entertaining. Like, it's because just thrilling.
Yeah. And Top Gun is that perfect intersection. Maverick is that perfect intersection of technical marvel and great story and emotional storytelling. Right. Like, at the end of the day, Top Gun is a really solid story outside of the effects and everything. But then you bring in this incredible Tom Cruise who wants to make everything practical and bring you into the immersion of the world. So we're looking at that. So Strange, I don't think is going to cross $1 billion. So Minions, I think, will cross $1 billion. I don't think Jurassic will go to that finish line. It has another 200 million to make. Do you think it can do it?
I just don't know what international territories it hasn't opened up yet, because it's the kind of franchise that succeeds no matter where you go.
Right. I mean, right now, let me double check this. Right now, I don't know. We're at 831. We just opened all right. We're coming up on a month this Sunday. So we're 831. Do you think it can make another 150, 170 million in the next?
Those last few are the hardest to get. It's hard to get people, because it generally means repeat viewing. You know, those blockbusters lure out their audience members at least the first 2 weekends, because they've been waiting to see it. They're going to go and see it with a crowd.
Also,
that's tough.
Also, this is a really important thing to bring up that I don't think people are talking enough about. So generally speaking, because Sean, you made a good point just now. These international territories are, you know, the reason XXX2 was made was because of international box office. Like, that movie didn't even do well domestically. Those movies crushed internationally. There are certain films they just make because they know international audiences are going to crush it. Look at Top Gun's middle ground between domestic and international. Domestic's 571. Yeah. International's 544.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know that I've seen. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen a domestic number that large over an international number for a movie that big.
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen,
at least in a long time.
Because I mean, look at all the
That's kind of been the story of the last 20 years, right? The box office story of the last 20 years.
Also, I want to just point out. I'm sorry, Gabe. Go ahead.
Just increasing the global market in general.
Well, let me give you a quick example. Spider-Man No Way Home, for example. Oh my God, this is crazy. 804 domestic, $1.096 billion international. That movie made a $1.9 billion.
It's insane. But what's crazy to me is that we are not even a year away, if I'm right. Am I doing the math right? From wondering if the movies were going to come back. Right?
Sure.
Wasn't it September?
Well,
and
I think
Tenet, when we were talking about like what's going to be the film that drives everybody back. And now we're talking about, can this film or that film or this film cross $1 billion?
Yeah.
Like that's a fast ramp up.
Well, this time last year, I believe we were still talking about like, oh, Warner Brothers is sending everything to streaming. Is this going to totally undercut any sort of recovery? Because everyone's just going to be like, I enjoyed it at home. Why not do that?
And now some of these titles are coming close to it's a resurgence. It's a wave of support.
And I think it's going to keep going.
For blockbusters.
I think
so.
But I was talking to my producer about this, who went and saw Top Gun 3 times. He went with all of his friends each time. Think about what that outing must have been like. You know, he probably went and grabbed dinner. It's a social thing. It's so much fun. You talk about it afterwards. Nothing like it.
Well, I'll mention one quick thing too, and because we've mentioned this on the show a little bit, that I've upgraded my television system, and I've now gotten somewhat used to seeing bigger things on at home, right? Essentially. And just today, before we recorded this episode, I went to go see Where the Crawdads Sing, and I'm not going to give any kind of review or reaction to it, but one thing I do want to say is the location and the scenery of that movie are just as important, like of a character. And I was thrilled that this was a mid-budget drama that I was still seeing on the big screen. It felt like something that would automatically go to streaming nowadays, but Sony is putting it exclusively in theaters, and I'm thrilled that they did, because it looks gorgeous on the big screen. And I was like, movies need to be seen this way. This is the way that movies are supposed to be seen. Doesn't matter what kind of movie it is. If the director is shooting it specifically for the big screen and making use of their environment and capturing all of this stuff, you have to go see it on the big screen. And it doesn't have to always be a blockbuster. It doesn't have to be a visual effects driven tentpole. It could be something as simple as this romance / murder mystery type story that's super engrossing because you're watching it play out on the big screen. So let's move from that to some small screen stuff in Stranger Things. And so this is a warning that we're going to get into spoilers for the full season 4.
Do we want to give quick
conversation.
spoiler free around the table before we dive into spoilers?
Sure.
Just so people know if we're positive.
Yeah.
I'll start us off and say, go ahead. I'll just say I loved it. Season 3, I want to go back and rewatch them. Season 3, I really loved. Season 2, I remember not enjoying. Season 1 is, the thing that started it all, that we all loved. To me, this was the most entertained I've been by Stranger Things, and I've been very entertained by Stranger Things over the years. It felt like it doubled down on us being invested in the characters, and it continued with sort of what it did with Season 3 of taking the time to introduce new characters that you fall in love with. And I think the villain and the story as a whole is so much more exciting than it's ever been. And it's been exciting, but this feels like a really true villain with clear motivations and not just, an ambiguous figure or monster or creature or idea that they've sort of relied on in the past. And I thought that was a huge improvement's the wrong word, because those were enjoyable. It's just like a great way for them to step up their game, I felt.
This is going to be beautiful. I love when he said that. That line was amazing. I've loved this series. Season 3 is still my favorite. I think I just love 3 because of the mall setting. I just loved 3 so much. I love 4 too. I think 4, I have just a couple exposition writing issues with some of the scenes. Some of it, like there were just moments where I felt like they could have trimmed a bit. Even episode 8, which I think is basically just a recap of 1 through 7. Like aside from, we'll jump into spoilers. Aside from a particular character death in episode 8, that episode didn't really, in terms of like, I don't know that it needed to be an hour and a half to justify what it did. But then when you get into episode 9, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes and it's all amazing. And so I was really happy with this season. It's obviously the best production value they've ever had. I mean, camera shots, score, performances. Joe Quinn is Eddie is incredible. I think Vecna is incredible. It's just a really, really well-rounded series. that really, and like, it's that classic way of jumping back and forth between 4 or 5 different storylines and keeping it entertaining and keeping it interesting and staying on a storyline for a perfect amount of time and then going back. And then, but what's interesting about it is when you're watching it, there are certain storylines that I want to stay in more than others.
That's exactly what I'm going to say in my spoiler free.
We'll dive into that.
Let's quickly get through Sean's spoiler free, and then that way we can open everything up.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that ultimately I liked the season a lot. I was very enjoyed while I watched it, but the structure of it annoyed me to the point where on a rewatch, there's going to, if there's a rewatch, there's going to be huge chunks that I will just want to skip.
Yeah.
Because, and maybe it's an issue with the episodes being too long. And we can get into spoiler issues. But one of the things that bothers me about Stranger Things as well too is the amount of time in between seasons. And I don't know if there's any way that they can speed that up. I think they take a long time to shoot, to write and to shoot. Because by the time you get around to the next season, I basically have completely forgotten everything that has happened. And it's a show that it's relevant, like the mythology is relevant to it. And because part of the reason is PJ is now going back to watch it for the very first time. So he just watched season 1. So I sat down and rewatched a lot of stuff from season 1 with him, and I didn't remember any of it.
Dude,
and I was like,
that van flip in season 1.
Oh, it's terrific. Yeah. But even just like they build a baby pool for her in the middle of the middle school, and they fill it with salt, which becomes a significant point of season 4 as well too. And I was like, oh gosh, they did all this already. This is really interesting. So let's get into spoilers now for this reason. And I'll point out like specifically, this is so funny to me because one of the storylines that I won't say hated, but that felt like the most detached is one that Kevin said that he loves the most, which is all the time they spent in Russia.
So I have a clarifying on that because I loved all that in 1 through 7. That was my least favorite part of 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I agree that Russia took too long, and I'll give it credit that none of it felt completely redundant. Like none of it felt like they were just wasting time. It felt logical that they would do this and this would fall through and then they would do that and this guy would, and it was all like, oh great, these are great twists and turns. Yeah. But it just felt like, okay, but I'm ready for us to not be here anymore. Like it's like
we're still here.
By the time
and they go back to the prison.
Yes,
I'm like,
by the time that they get out of the prison and then they go, wait, we got to go back and we got to fight that thing. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but like I would have rather us not do all this and then figure that out just because we already left and then came back when we got caught. And
like there was a lengthy time where Yuri took a spark plug out and wouldn't start the plane. And I was like, are we still doing this?
the Russia bit was really drawn out.
Especially in 8 and 9.
I agree with that. But that said, how that pays off, I was getting,
and that's the thing.
That
the way
reunion,
that like I thought, because the other storyline that I thought played out that dragged on for too long, although I was never like checked out of it, was Jonathan and Mike and Will and the pizza dude driving around everywhere.
Argyle.
Is that his name?
And
whenever
that
they
has
cut
a good
to them,
payoff.
I was like, it has a great payoff.
Yeah.
But all the time that we kept checking back in with them, I was like, where are they? Like they detoured up to go talk to that girl that Dustin talks to via satellite.
And she was
just
fun.
to check in with her.
With cheaper by the dozen household or whatever that they were in.
Yeah, she's fun. But like they're driving up to Nevada or wherever they were going. Like, and then even with 11 being back in the facility.
Oh, I love all that.
I like it, but it felt like it could have been 4 episodes instead of the 7 that we got, basically.
Well,
right?
Similar to Russia,
the whole season felt
to Russia, it felt like, again, it all felt logical and it all paid off well. And it's not like inherently bad. I think we would really dislike it if it was inherently bad. But it's similar to Russia. The lab stuff was like she hit a wall and then she was like, I'm ready to go. And they kept saying, oh, it's your choice, but it's not. And oh, it's your choice, but it's not. And like, it paid off, and the Papa stuff I think ended up really great, and I felt his whole arc across the series and sort of the revelation about her as a young kid and their relationship and what happened with number 1, like all of that is completely justified that they told that story. But similar to Russia, it felt like they double started it.
But as we were jumping between storylines, and I think we can all agree, there are ones you just start to favorite and like more. And I loved spending time with Eddie. I love spending time with all those characters that were in the Upside Down.
Who they were smart enough, I think we'd have to count. I think they were smart enough that they got the most screen time. Like I think they understood that Russia and Argyle and his boys were sort of BC plots that were,
which is weird,
that were waiting to come to a head. I think they just had too many characters. But
Finn Wolfhard, Mike and Will are like massive characters in that show. I'm surprised they got relegated to
sidelines.
The B line.
I think that it helped make this season feel more fresh than we maybe realized. I think that if everyone was together, I think that if every scene had to have Mike react and Will react, like if all these characters were doing what the sort of main conflict is, the A plot is, I think we would have gotten really exhausted with that many characters with the addition of the new characters that we love. All right. So I think they did it smart, but it's inevitable that it felt a little long in the tooth.
I'll throw one out there as well too. I think they should have committed to killing Max. I think Max should have died.
I was pretty upset. I was pretty upset that she died, though. I will say that.
It's okay to be upset, though. It's okay. I think that's all right.
I understand. Here's my thought, though. What I actually thought in the moment when you're given a few moments to think that she's dead. I was upset in the sense that I was like, I don't need every show to be Game of Thrones. I like these characters. This world is so much fun. It's genuinely creepy, and it pulls all of these references that tickle my nostalgia realm of my brain. Like, it's okay if we have some stories where like the heroes win, right? And that feels and they're in danger, but like we can live through that. Like I had that genuine where I was like, she's so great, and like her brother dying was dark enough, and well deserved, and a great payoff, and that actor's great, and that was great. Her dying for me, I was really upset of like, I don't need this show to be that. That was for me. Yeah, for me.
So a few things. Well, Dacre Montgomery, I want to bring him up because Dacre, who plays her brother Billy. It's interesting because
favorite characters on the show.
He's so good.
This is why I say season 3 is the best season. I'll tell you why. So, like, I love season 1. Season 1 was lightning in a bottle. It was a game changer. It was incredible. Season 2, I don't really remember as much. I remember thinking I remember not liking it. But when 3 hit, 3 was like when they upped their production, in my opinion. The mall stuff was unbelievable. It was I think it was 10 episodes. I don't remember the exact length, but it was a beginning and ending of a story. It didn't have any fat on it. I thought every single storyline was interesting. And Dacre Montgomery, who plays Billy, and the Max storyline, like those new characters were so awesome and so interesting, and so even like Dacre at the pool, like when he would turn into like and now that we know what was really going on, it's just fascinating.
Weird, but like you understood it with like the moms or whatever that were all
so strange. Yeah, because he was hitting on like Mike's mom, right?
Yeah, Mike and Nancy's mom,
Finn Wolfhard, and but going back to like the Duffer Brothers are operating at an incredible level of storytelling, and you're juggling millions and millions of dollars, incredible production, brilliant camera work. I mean, there are oneers in season 4 that were astounding to me.
And Sean mentioned this before I saw 7 and 8, or is it 8 and 9?
8 and 9.
8 and 9. Sorry, 8 and 9. Which they directed both of them, right?
Yep.
Sean mentioned this before I could see him. He was like, "Man, they really know how to direct." And so I think I was a little bit paying more attention to the direction than I maybe would have. And goddamn, are you right? They were, their shot selection, the way, like, those are just such good episodes.
It's noticeably different when they are in charge.
I love Stranger Things, but I can't wait to see what they do next.
I'm telling you, and like that, it's funny. And I go back to I did an interview with the Duffers for season 3. And I remember sitting down with them, and this was kind of a shocking thing to learn, because these guys, going into that interview, I had seen season 3, and I'm like, damn, man, these guys, season 1, and then obviously Sean Levy directs every 3rd and 4th episode of Stranger Things. If you want to know why, you can go to our interview with Sean for Free Guy. He explains it. But they bring Sean on for every 3rd and 4th episode of every season. And obviously he, was there at the beginning of the series. But I remember that same day I interviewed the Duffers. I sent this to you guys so you guys know. I'll just explain to the audience. But I interviewed the Russos that day for the Endgame re-release. And I happened to be in LA for Stranger Things, and they were doing a satellite. And I was like, hey, can I just come over to where they're doing their satellite and talk to them in person? They were like, sure. So I get there and I'm like, I pull my camera, like, hey, I'm talking to the Duffer brothers today, since you guys are both brothers. Haha. I was like, can I get a question for you guys? So I get this question, and the Russos are basically like, we'd love to work with you guys. I know you guys are busy with Stranger Things. Let's get together in 2025. And I play the video for the Duffers, and they like freak out. But then their answer was interesting to me, because they basically said in their answer, I don't want to take them out of context, I'll paraphrase them, is that we don't really know what we're doing in terms of these big spectacle action practical sequences, the camera work. We basically go to the to the Russos sometimes and say, hey, how do you work these shots out? How do you do these things on the level? I mean, you're talking about Infinity War and Endgame, and those movies are, I mean, again, I'm not comparing size, but they're probably as big of a production and big of a deal to shoot as these episodes of Stranger Things that we're seeing. They're massive productions. And these guys, the Duffers, seemed like they were just two guys who loved telling stories that had to kind of learn the technical side of it. And then and again, I don't want to take them out of context, and you can find the clip online, but when you walk into season 4, and to Gabe's point, man, there are shots and practical effects.
When she downs the helicopter?
Yeah. Dude, that was, I guarantee you that was a real explosion. Guarantee that was a real explosion.
Looked like
and
it.
Did you notice in the shot? I like that shot because I'm glad you brought that up. So there's 2 shots of that moment where Eleven is standing there and the helicopter goes down. The first shot looks like she's a lot closer because
it's on a telephoto, yeah.
Right, telephoto. So and then they cut out to this awesome wide shot. And you go, oh, and I thought to myself, okay, Millie Bobby Brown was fine because she was far away from that shot.
I'm sure they didn't endanger Millie Bobby Brown.
I know, but it looked so close.
It does. It's a great shot.
I think the van flip in season 1 was practical. These guys have been doing practical effects ever since season 1.
That was a part of sort of like the making of the show, the texture of the show was we are tapping into the 80s nostalgia. We are tapping into Stephen King. We are tapping into all these things. And the only way that works and that doesn't feel like a cheap ripoff,
do it for real,
is if you do it for real. If you do
look at the
with
mall.
that aesthetic.
Look at the mall in 3.
I think the reason we fell in love with Stranger Things, and back to that first season, was because it felt like we were watching something out of that era. Yes. It didn't feel like we were watching something that was describing that era.
Right.
And that is why it's gotten as far as it has.
You're so right.
Because they nailed the atmosphere and the texture that you need.
Like the sets that stood out to me the most in season 4 were the amount of time they spent in the Upside Down and Vecna's lair, the house, and everything.
When they would go in between, just a simple shot of man.
It's great.
Climbing through was really great. I do want to call out the Vecna and the performer Jamie Campbell Bower.
Yeah, practically.
I mentioned this in the which they put together I think maybe it's with like Vanity Fair or something. They put together a behind the scenes look at the prosthetics and the makeup across all of it, and there's a section that's specifically on putting together his
7 hours
costume. Amazing. He was a phenomenal performance, and I thought that creature was awesome. And
did it remind you of a Del Toro creature? It kind of reminded me of a character from Pan's Labyrinth.
It's very, to me, it felt like it pulled its inspiration from Creature from the Black Lagoon, which of course put me in the mindset of Del Toro and Shape of Water in a sense.
You know what?
The team that worked on it is the team that built the Night King from Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
So the Duffers reached out to that team and said, we want our own iconic villain.
Cool.
And like this type of we love that the Night King is kind of this menacing creature, but he feels very powerful and human. And so they basically reached out to the team and said, we just want you to make that for us. Here's our concept art.
It's going to sound really strange, but there were multiple times when Vecna was getting a really up close facial shot where he reminded me of Mike Myers' Cat in the Hat.
Okay.
And I don't know why. It was just
the eyes.
It's the nose.
He had it's the nose for sure. And he had some lines coming out of the nose that just
I never got that.
His whiskers.
I never got
that. It's a little strange.
Very important to note. That's basically, so when I interviewed Jamie Campbell Bower, I assumed that they were just adding effects to his voice. That's pretty much what he sounds like. I mean, they obviously add a bass growling aspect to it, but if you go on Jamie's Instagram, he has a video where he's recording the line about becoming the predator, or whatever he says, whatever the line is, but he becoming the predator I was always meant to be. And you can actually see him relax his throat as he's about to deliver the predator line. Like he
Interesting.
It's wild, almost like he's like swallowing air or something. And then you look at the video, he sounds just like Vecna before the effects are added to the voice.
That's
and
cool.
like, it's unbelievable. And shout out to him, by the way. If you have, and obviously Sweeney Todd was the first movie he ever made. And he was phenomenal in Sweeney Todd. The kid has an incredible resume. Twilight films, the Harry Potter films, just in terms of like the sheer number of the big scale work he's done. But Vecna is a really, really fascinating character that I just love watching. And I don't.
And what a payoff for the last 3 seasons before it. What a payoff.
And good for him. I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, we're in a spoiler section, so we're back at Hawkins now. We don't.
Well, the
think
final
Vecna's-
shot's intense. The
Yeah.
final shot, like I wanted to bring up the final shot because it looks like, and I find this to be really interesting too because every season of Stranger Things so far of the 4 have been able to kind of ramp up for whatever the issue is. It feels like 5 is going to have to hit the ground running with shit about to explode.
Oh yeah.
Like season 5 could be just a
Is it going to be
start
full
to finish battle.
Yeah, is it going to be like full Army of Darkness, just things crawling out of the ground and just taking over the town?
I
like,
read
it
a
seems...
story today that they're. I mean, I don't know who to credit. 'Cause I know some of the people who've been interviewing the Duffers have been releasing stories, but I did read that 5 is going to have no slow aspects. It's just going to start and just be relentless for all the whole
Feels
thing.
like it has to.
It's going to be shorter. Apparently.
That was a huge thing for me as we were getting into like the last 2 episodes, and as the conflict was coming to a head, and as Vecna was realizing how good of a villain Vecna was for the story. I was sitting there going like, there's one, I had to double check. I was like, there's one more season, right? Like there's like, what are they going to do? This is such a good culmination of the last 3 seasons. What the hell are they going to do? And then they hit you with the earthquake, quote unquote.
When
and I thought that was brilliant.
Coming through the town, I really thought that was gonna unleash bat creatures into.
I assume
Hastings.
that's coming. I think that so he is in control of the Upside Down is sort of what we understand is that his journey through, walking through is he took control of the Mind Flayer as they called it. And he has control of that dimension. And they said he's weak, but he's alive. And so I think that there's this downtime right now, and that's why there's not a flood of creatures, but he's probably rebuilding his power, and then now that he has the open portals, will basically like unleash an assault in season 5.
Wow.
2 people I really want to just focus on real fast. And Gabe, can you help me with this? The actor who plays the character who's trying to kill Eddie, whose girlfriend dies at the beginning. Jason,
basketball star
Mason Dye is the guy's name.
Okay.
I didn't love that.
Amazing.
He's good. I didn't love that storyline though. That felt.
I did. I thought
he
scared me.
Point.
He scared me.
It's good. It's not that it's bad, but it got to about the like. It's only in the last couple episodes, but when they kept showing up and kind of just being a wrench, I was like,
sure.
All right.
Like would do
like I was
that
like,
Caleb scene.
I don't need a wrench right now. Yeah,
where
it's
he fights
good.
him.
It's good.
Yeah, that's a rough fight.
It's a rough fight, and it's good. But I just got kind of over the like.
Yeah,
sure.
This guy's crazy and he's upset. It just kept coming back at the opportune time to sort of mess up the story, and I got tired of it. But
I just want to shout out his performance. That's all.
He's great.
In terms of like character, I'm just talking about the performance. And then obviously Joe Quinn as Eddie, but also Caleb McLaughlin, who plays Lucas, who's in that fight scene at the end getting beat up.
How brutal was it, by the way, when the dimensional portal tears through him?
Oh yeah.
I was like, okay, he's dead.
That was sick.
Caleb McLaughlin is a great actor. Sadie Sink, obviously, who plays Max.
He was brilliant this year.
But guys, I had this moment, and you hear stories about this all the time, and then you realize when it happens, you understand it. And this happened to me when I was watching the first 7 episodes of this series. The moment Joe Quinn took to screen, and they were doing those Hellfire Club moments, and Priya Ferguson walks in as Erica and talks down to him, which I love that moment. He cracks that smile. He became an instant classic character to me. And I felt like I was watching, I felt like I was in that mindset where you hear a director sometimes talk about the moment they see an actor come in for an audition and they go, oh, that guy has it. And I don't know that I can recollect a couple of moments where a new actor has come into my atmosphere or whatever, and I've gone, damn, like that guy knows how to act to the camera to make me immersed in this world. I loved every scene he was in, and I thought he was like, it was a magnet. Like I loved that character, and rightfully so, because I'm a metalhead. And then as the show progresses and you see Iron Maiden mentioned and Metallica, obviously with Master of Puppets, there was something about that character's introduction that I knew I was going to love this dude. I knew I was going to want to see more of him on screen. And I realized like, man, like I mean, that's like a big deal. That's a star making performance. That is a performance that can change your life if you do it well. And I think I can't wait to see what he does next, because he's so different in person from the interviews that I've seen with him. He sounds nothing like the character. Him riffing on Master of Puppets was unbelievable.
So sick.
And even that Kate Bush song.
Running up the hill.
And the versions that they did in the score were great. Yeah.
What a great, I mean, anyways.
Again, it all goes back to the Duffers. It goes back to the Duffers as storytellers. Like they wrote that character. You know, obviously the kid played it as well as he did, but like,
but he's so good.
This world.
As we're closing out this section, I do want to highlight this just because I think spoilers were sort of inherently nitpicking and pulling things and you know, criticizing it as it were. In spite of everything that I personally myself have said about like this went on too long, or you know, this felt this, whatever those small things are, I will rewatch that thing in full, no problem. Like I loved this season, and I need to rewatch 3.
Yes,
because 3 before was my favorite, but looking back right now, recency bias, I would put this up there.
But just look how tight 3 is.
I don't want to get into 3, but I'm just saying for me personally, that's how good this was, despite of all of the criticisms that we may have thrown at it. The Duffers, their ability to craft stories right now is
we all loved it.
And I'm glad that they're ending it after one more season.
Yeah,
I
think
want to
it's
see
perfect.
them continuing to try to milk it for, you know, tell your story.
We'll have a spin-off series, Strangest Things, and you know, it'll be all new characters.
Yeah. Can't wait for that to happen. All right, why don't we take a quick break, and then on the other side of this break, we're going to talk Thor, Love and Thunder. And we are back. This week in movies, everybody is getting out of the way of Marvel Studios, who plan to have another behemoth in theaters called Thor, Love and Thunder, reuniting Chris Hemsworth with his director Taika Waititi from Thor Ragnarok, but also bringing back Tessa Thompson and Taika himself playing the sidekick Korg. And returning to the franchise after taking a few movies off, Natalie Portman is back as Jane Foster, and in this movie is going to be transitioning into the Mighty Thor, which is a very popular version of Thor from the comics. We're going to do a spoiler-free run around the circle first, before we then dive into some specifics for people who are maybe listening to this after getting a chance to run out to the theater and see the film. Kev, let's start with you. Knowing that Ragnarok wasn't necessarily your favorite Marvel movie.
I would say actively dislikes it.
No.
Would you put this above Ragnarok?
Well, so I actually revisited Ragnarok recently. I as I've said before, I would give that movie a 3 out of 5. I really like the action and things like that, but just some of the comedy just doesn't land for me. Though on the rewatch, I forgot about this one really cool moment that I do love in the beginning of Ragnarok when you go into the POV of the hammer and you're going around the fight.
Yes.
Really cool. Like anytime
Pretty
like
awesome.
those, like that's what it, you know, in terms of Love and Thunder, that's kind of like the action, the way he does action. I really like Taika's action.
He does so much in the beginning. Not that we need to talk about Ragnarok, but I do love Ragnarok. He does so much in the beginning to subtly show you his bond and relationship and love and attachment to the hammer. Whether it's that action scene, whether it's the way he's just kind of tossing it, threatening Loki, like brilliant storytelling to not make a big deal out of it until you come back for the second watch and you realize, oh, he was tying him to this in a big way. Anyway, I do love it.
And there's a moment in Ragnarok after I saw Love and Thunder that speaks to what Gabe is saying. There's actually a moment where Korg basically says to Thor, your relationship with your hammer is not unlike a relationship with an ex, a girlfriend, or somebody you loved. Because then Thor and Love and Thunder, they bring that whole aspect
Concept
into the story.
back,
But in terms of Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, I again, my biggest problem ends up being the comedy, especially in this one where it becomes a little bit more spoofy for me. I found it to be a little more mocking of the MCU and like joking. And I get the whole Asgard thing and a tourist attraction. I understand that. I think I know why that's funny. But there was just moments where I wanted it to take itself a little more seriously. And I think when you're shifting tone the way Taika does in this movie, it's really a dangerous jump to make if you don't smooth it out. And I think there are times where scenes needed a bit of a transition or maybe a bit of a lesser comedic tone just to transition back into the serious things, because the stuff with Christian Bale is not funny at all. It's very, very dark and very, very brutal. The character is really terrifying. Outside of the comedy, though, I love the action. Thought Hemsworth was great. Thought Bale was great. Thought Portman was amazing. Thought Tessa was amazing. I was all in on the performances, the drama, the action. It was the comedy that just didn't land. Also, listen, I love Guns N' Roses, but a needle drop of Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City, we've seen it a million times over and over again. And that song, those songs are great, but it just felt like I'd seen this before. I think the first one, I want to say Ragnarok was more Led Zeppelin.
The Immigrant Song.
Which was great.
Another
It was
one maybe, but Immigrant Song for sure.
Right. But this one, and again, I saw this a couple weeks ago. Every song sounded like a Guns N' Roses track, unless I'm missing one ABBA song.
There were a number of them, yeah.
But it was almost, I kind of got to a point where he was needle dropping Paradise City, and I was just like, all right, man, I've seen this before. That being said, I found it entertaining. I liked that it was under 2 hours. I thought Russell Crowe was fun, even though that scene it's so comedic and it's a weird scene in the middle of that film. But I liked it. I liked it better than Ragnarok. I found it entertaining. We'll dive into spoilers. I just think tonally, and I get it. If you, maybe I'm not a fan of Taika's humor, but even if I'm not a fan of his humor, there were bits that I laughed at. There were jokes that I thought were funny. But then there were moments where I just kind of cringed for it. I was like, that's not really that funny, or it just fell flat. Sure. And I just think the uneven tone of it really threw me off. It was really just the needle drops in the comedy. That being said, I gave it a 3.5, which is, it might sound like a better rating than what I'm describing, because I love the action. The opening action scene is phenomenal. Like even like a bit where he's doing splits, which is in the trailer, that made me laugh. It's a little mocky of the MCU, but
Jean-Claude Van Damme though, which I thought was fun.
That made me laugh. I thought of Jean-Claude Van Damme immediately, and that was cool. And so to me, Hemsworth and Portman's so great in this. I loved her story. They also mentioned Interstellar and Event Horizon, which made me happy. But overall, I think it's a 3.5 out of 5. It's solid. But I also didn't love Ragnarok, so take my thoughts with a grain of salt.
So I'm going to say that I always am going to be the MCU apologist on the show, and I thoroughly enjoy watching virtually any Marvel movie. I enjoy watching those characters. I love going to visit those worlds. So whenever I'm watching a Marvel movie, I'm in general enjoying myself. And so far, I've yet to sit through one where I'm like, this is actively bad. I had a different experience with Love and Thunder than I did with Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness just recently, to give them comparison, in that while I was watching each of them, I was really enjoying them. And I was along for the ride. And I was noticing things, but still just sort of having a good time as it was all playing out. And in the days following Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, I started to dwell on the things that didn't work. And I thought about, that was kind of, why'd they do that and this? And in the days following Love and Thunder, the more I thought about it, the more I went in the opposite direction. The more I liked it. The more the things that really worked for me worked incredibly well. And so I ended up going a little bit stronger with it. And I'll tell you guys why when we get into the spoilers. But I'll just say that it was a movie that the more I thought about it, I liked it a lot more, and I actually want to rush back out to see it on the big screen. Whereas with Doctor Strange, I legitimately felt like I could just wait till Disney Plus to see that one again. Because I'll say this at the very least, for me, the story is stronger. The story is really, really strong, and is a stronger story than the one that was in Ragnarok. Also,
better villain too.
There's a better villain and a better arc all the way through. And so I really want to kind of go back and see it all play out again. And then I'll get into some specifics when we get into that part of it. Gabe, where'd you fall?
I like the movie, but I do not think it is as good as Ragnarok. And I actually was able to rewatch Ragnarok after seeing this one, which was illuminating in that the issue I had watching this and was confirmed with a rewatch of Ragnarok is that this unfortunately feels like a traditional Hollywood sequel to Ragnarok. And we sort of talk about like, when Hollywood sequelizes something, they just take everything from the first one and then they turn it up a little bit and then they sort of redo it. And this doesn't completely do that. It's not Ragnarok's story told again, but it is Korg turned up. It's the bit about his connection to Mjolnir turned up. It's all the sort of tone and jokes that come from Ragnarok sort of reused. And for me, that really detracted from the film because Ragnarok felt so fresh, because Ragnarok felt so original. And I would say might be the most original movie in the MCU. Like, I think the great thing about the MCU is that it allows these filmmakers to come in and play a genre within the MCU. And that's great. And, it's great that The Winter Soldier feels like a spy thriller, but it's still a Marvel movie. And it's, this feels like this, but it's still a Marvel movie. And this, I think, reaches the level of an Endgame and an Infinity War. Ragnarok, reaches a level of an Infinity Game and a Endgame and Infinity War because it feels like it couldn't really exist anywhere else than the Marvel universe. And that's why I love that movie. To me, the first 20 or 30 minutes of this it doesn't go as far as retconning. I wouldn't use the word retconning, but they definitely were not planning on Natalie Portman coming back. When you rewatch Ragnarok and you see that
interesting.
Valkyrie was kind of set up as a subtle love interest, and there's a lot of sexual tension between her and Thor. And that's fine that they don't have to finish that, and they make for great friends, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But rewatching Ragnarok, they leave that open ended, and then in this they spend the beginning sort of very exposition heavy and very like, we need you to catch up on where Natalie Portman's character is.
They also focus on Valkyrie's character sexuality too, which becomes a bigger prominent aspect here.
And that's fine. Yeah. But my point is, they did that because they created a lot of sexual tension between her and Thor in Ragnarok, and maybe that shifted in like the Infinity War and stuff because they do have scenes together. I don't quite remember if that gets fleshed out a little more gradually, but in this, it very much feels like they had to fix some things in the beginning of this film because during Ragnarok, they were not expecting this to happen. And again, the beginning of it just... Go ahead.
Why didn't Portman... I'm sorry, Sean. This is just a question and train of thought because in Ragnarok, since I rewatched it, because to Gabe's point, there's that moment where him and Hiddleston go to the city and someone asks for a photo of Thor and someone says to Thor,
breakup.
Jane dumped you. And he goes, oh, she didn't dump me. I dumped her, whatever. Was there a reason why Portman didn't come back for Ragnarok? And then was it just a redo to bring her back? Because she's so great in this and I love her in this and I'm glad that she's in this. I just don't know what happened.
I think she's Natalie Portman. She doesn't have to do it, kind of thing. Like she
wasn't asked. Was she asked to come back for 3?
I don't know the story, but I think it's clear. It's clear to me in the storytelling of this film that they had to make up some ground. And like, I won't go as far as saying retconning because I think stuff was ambiguous enough that it could end up this way. But I didn't love the beginning of the film, how much we had to chug through to bring her back into the fold and set up where she's at. We can get into spoilers where that is. That said, I do like this movie. Like I do enjoy it. Yeah. Kevin mentions the action, incredible. There's a moment at the end that I want to mention that I thought was so sick.
Cool action.
And I absolutely enjoyed watching this movie and I will enjoy watching again. To maybe put it in terms that Sean sort of put it, undecided if I'm excited to rush back to a theater or watch this at home. That's kind of where my excitement is for it. But I really enjoyed it, and I will rewatch it eventually because I like Taika's humor. I just was kind of bogged down for me about that. It just felt like a sequel to Ragnarok and not another film by Taika Waititi.
The one continuity thing I want to bring up, since you mentioned the beginning of the movie, is I think the beginning was probably rewritten a lot because of the fact, and I mentioned this on the show before, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was supposed to come out before this.
Oh, sure.
And when James Gunn got fired, they pushed that all the way back. And Thor would have been a character in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 instead of the Guardians showing up in his movie kind of thing. They had to move Thor forward and push that back. And when they left Endgame, they left together in a ship. Right. So Taika now had to deal with the fact that, like, oh, I got to resolve the fact that Thor's with the Guardians. And I think that might have led into how they put this movie together.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't mind the Guardians. I actually thought I mean, it's funny when they left, I kind of wish they stayed a little bit. I kind of wanted
I wouldn't have minded
to hang out. Yeah.
I also do want to, so let's get into spoilers now where we can start to talk specifics. And if you want to, if you haven't yet seen Thor Love and Thunder, hop forward to our blend game where we're going to play a Christian Bale blend. But before
sorry. Before we do that, I do want to mention two things. Sorry. While we're in spoiler free.
Sure.
One is tier listing. Jake's not here this week. So next week, I will give a quick housekeeping update here. As long as everything goes according to plan and we're all present, we got to catch up on Obi-Wan tier listing for the Star Wars tier list and this. So plan on next week for regular listeners who are interested in the tier list. We will tackle that next week to catch us all up. And then, did you guys want to quickly give your predictions for the box office? We're recording this on Tuesday, so we don't know anything about the box office.
So yes, I just looked this up. So I wanted to bring this up here because I think this is interesting. So Thor Ragnarok opened to 122 million back in 2017. Mm-hmm. So was that 2017? Wow, I thought that was 2019. Okay, so 122 million. I think it's an open less than that.
Okay. So what are you saying?
I know.
How much do you think Gru drops? That's a big question.
45.
I think Gru could drop 65. 60.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of audience for that, but I don't know that there's a lot of repeat audience for that. I could be wrong. It depends on how much that shakes out as far as how many of their kids, and if parents had a blast distracting them for a couple hours, maybe they'll keep taking them back. But I think the gentle Minions is a flash in the pan viral thing. But
I also don't think Thor hits the younger audience. That makes sense. And I feel like Taika's movies are pretty kind of adult, I would argue, in terms of just like jokes and content. And I don't know. I find like a movie like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, those are heavy films, but I could see kids going. Do you think kids are going to get the jokes in Love and Thunder and Ragnarok? So. Okay. I'm not trying to downplay children. I just feel like these movies seem a little more older skewing.
I don't think there's anything in Ragnarok that has parents worried about this one.
Not like, worried, just like content.
But I think that's all. But I think that's all that it would be. Like I think it would have to be parents stepping in and being like, "Oh, I don't know." And
I want to clarify. I'm not talking about parents like not letting their kids see it. I'm talking about like I feel like these last two Thor movies have been.
Well, what age do you mean then? You mean like
I feel like I would say like late teenagers, early and forward. I can't. Can you see like a 7 or 8 year old wanting to see Love and Thunder? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It just feels a little bit more older skewing.
I think they would want to go see it just for the colorful action bits that they know.
And I think
from
Thor is a crowd favorite.
Is not that I'm using Thor a big. Okay.
Well, this is why I'm gonna go.
Okay.
So I just looked in Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange opened to 187 million.
Oh, then never mind. Then you're
Doctor Strange opened to
take all that from the record.
187 million.
So you think? What do you think this will break 150?
Whoa, wait. Was 180 domestic? Are you sure on that? There's no way. Hold on a second.
That's what I'm looking at.
Continue your point.
90 million, 57 million, and then 38 million on Sunday. Double check.
God.
I'm putting Thor Love and Thunder at 200. I think Thor:
Okay.
Love and Thunder makes 200.
All right, you know what?
Because I think
Right.
Thor. I think Gabe's right. I think Thor is a fan favorite.
And Kev, because you were smart to bring up the box office from Ragnarok, but I think what you were overlooking there, to no fault of your own, other than just maybe overlooking it, is that Ragnarok had the Force Awakens sort of thing of needed to get people back onto Thor because the first two were so people were not excited about Thor before Ragnarok.
Okay, so this is interesting. Now
I think Ragnarok is what bought it a lot of eyeballs.
All right,
Doctor Strange did 187.
Okay, then I'm wrong. So I'm gonna I want to just delete, not delete and keep it in, obviously, but take that away, because now I would actually argue Doctor Strange feels like it skews even older than Thor. Because that's a weird movie. Doctor Strange is a
200. So 200.
Movie.
Kev,
I'm saying 200.
What do you want to lock in on? And then we'll get into spoilers.
Yeah, Sean, you completely convinced me. My whole older skewing argument is.
This is why we make a podcast. This
throw out the window. I mean, if Doctor Strange did 187, now the only
Gru is curious for me though. That's a lot of money that it made.
He
has holdover and Top Gun makes another 25 million. I don't know, like.
I think reason
July
why
4th was the last weekend for Top Gun. Was the last weekend for Top Gun to really hold on, and now it's going to be Marvel.
I think the reason why I was thinking more older skewing for Taika is because I think his other films like Jojo Rabbit and his non-Marvel films, I feel like do have an older audience.
Oh, sure, definitely.
But those are all smaller. Like I just don't think that the general audience even really recognizes those films, like Jojo Rabbit or Hunt for the Wilder People. I think Hunt for the Wilder People is a great movie for kids to see.
All right, so people who are listening and hearing me go off on that tangent of less than 122 and yelling at the radio, you were right. Yeah, if Doctor Strange did 187, there's the argument.
Okay, here we'll do this. Do you think it breaks 200, or do you want to go over under Sean's 200?
Okay, I'll give
Sean a $5 million buffer on either side. I don't know why we're making this. So.
I'm gonna play it safe here, and here's why. I'm gonna go lower than 187, and I'll give you my reasoning.
That's a very specific number.
Right,
no, that's Doctor Strange's number. That's
okay, right. Yeah, that makes more sense. I was like, where'd you get 187?
So Doctor Strange did 187 domestically opening weekend. Yeah. That came off the heels of a $1.9 billion No Way Home, where Doctor Strange was a leading character. Okay, so that was also following the events of No Way Home. Yep. It had it. So that's
I hope the audio listeners are picturing you in like the Doctor Strange thing where he's like searching time in his mind, and you're putting the puzzle together.
Yeah. Okay. Here's why I'm going to go less than Strange though, even though it doesn't make sense, because to my argument, I would argue Strange.
Get to your point. These kids would hear spoilers, but yes,
I'm gonna go 170.
Okay.
And the reason why is that I believe that we are approaching, and if not already, in Marvel fatigue. Okay. I think that we just had Doctor Strange. It made almost $1 billion. It came off the heels of No Way Home.
Marvel's on TV.
Right. Marvel's on TV. Ragnarok opened to 122. This one doesn't have. Ragnarok had a 95% Rotten Tomatoes. Not that means anything, but it does in terms of marketing. This has apparently a 73. Again, doesn't mean anything, but you never know. I
don't think it means anything for what audiences are going to spend their money on.
Female Thor is going to drive the big audience.
I'm going to go 170. You're at 200.
Yes, I'm at 200. I'm at 200, and I think I'm lowballing it, to be honest.
Sean's not wrong. Sean, I was so wrong on this.
I will play, and I think 190. I think it's shy. I think it's shy of 200. But that I'm only because I have no idea why Gru made this much money.
I know.
Yeah. I think it's gonna. Honestly, I honestly think it's gonna get to about 225. I think when all said and done, it's gonna get to about 225.
Sounds great.
But I'm gonna say 200.
Man, I'll be. You know what? Anything could happen. But now
I think the trailers work, and I think female Thor is going to be a big hit. I think that a lot of people love Ragnarok. I can only use my little small sample size, but the minute the tickets went on sale, PJ and all of his friends bought them for opening night. Whereas with Doctor Strange, they bought them for opening night. And with Doctor Strange, they were just like, well, we'll figure it out.
If your 17-year-old son bought pre-sale tickets, then it's going to make a lot of money.
Well, let's are we ready to dive into spoilers? Because I do want us to get into.
Let's do spoilers. I part of the reason why I ended up really liking this movie more the more I thought about it was specifically for the cast and how good everybody is in the movie. Hemsworth still doesn't get enough credit for how good he is as Thor. Thor is a character that very easily could not work if the actor didn't figure out how to play him. And I thought in Love and Thunder, he got the right balance of comedy and the mythology, the importance that comes with being the strength of the God of Thunder. And I really feel like it's crazy to say that after all this time, he finally now figured out Thor, because there's moments throughout all the other films where he absolutely captures it, whether it be during the first Avengers film. Obviously, of course, he's tremendous in Infinity War. There's been plenty of debate about the way that they handle him in Endgame, but I loved his return in this and thought he was terrific. I loved Tessa Thompson in it. I loved Natalie Portman and the way that they handled Jane Foster coming back.
Yeah.
Christian Bale is one of the best villains that we've seen in the MCU, full stop.
His opening was so good. I really wish the movie was more like that opening, because it felt very poetic.
It's funny, I asked Taika about that because if you notice, Ragnarok opens on the Marvel logo, no scene.
Yeah.
This one opens straight up scene, then logo.
Because the logo would undercut the tone of that, I think.
Right, and it's kind of what he was talking about.
You really, because whenever his, and we're in spoilers,
Endgame did the same thing.
Whenever his daughter dies, I was like, I knew in that moment, I was like, they're never gonna get me off this guy's side. Like this,
Right.
he's gonna have to be redeemed, because that's how powerful the emotion of that opening scene was.
Yep,
Yeah, and no,
exactly.
you're 100% wrong, 100% right, because like it's an interesting choice because Endgame opened the same way, and it was weird because when you go to a screening of a movie, like for Thor, for example, you don't get any of the trailers and the AMC stuff. So I'm sitting in the theater, and all of a sudden the lights go dark, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm in a scene. I'm in a scene.
That Hawkeye opening scene. Every single time I rewatch Endgame, I love that scene.
Dude, when I was at the premiere,
so good.
When I was at the premiere for Endgame, and that Hawkeye scene opened, I thought they started the movie halfway through by mistake.
Oh,
because
really?
at first, because I wasn't ready for it, because it was like, it just opens up on this like quiet house, big farmland or whatever, and then playing around, and then all of a sudden you see the dusting, and that's kind of what Taika does here, essentially, basically, with the death of Bale's kid, who, by the way, you guys know who plays that girl, right?
Yeah. That's India Hemsworth. That's Chris Hemsworth's daughter.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
She plays
And
Love, yeah.
Oddly enough, too, he has twin sons, and one of them plays young Thor, who's running through that montage.
That's cool.
That was my interview. Like because I asked him, I was like, and also I think his two sons are in the window when they're in the village, because he has twin sons. One of his kids plays the younger Thor running, and then his daughter plays Love.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So the last shot of the movie is Hemsworth and his daughter with their, they jump up. Right. And then they go, that's pretty cool, man, to have
she
that.
Was
like
great too. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I
love it.
She was so good.
That's
I do want to
Hemsworth's
highlight
kid,
the children of Asgard.
God, I love them.
Was an awesome piece to move the plot forward.
Those kids
and
were awesome.
Heimdall's son. I don't know who played Heimdall's son, but I thought he was terrific. And one of the, like, I had my criticisms while watching the movie where I was like, it's a little clunky in that they were trying to get there and then they just start teleporting to the center of the universe, and I had my issues with sort of some of the exposition and feeling like, again, I don't like using the word retcon for this because it didn't feel that abrupt, but the way that they had to sort of repurpose Jane Foster and all this stuff, I had all that going. But when he gives the kids the power of Thor. And they fight, and I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, I'm just watching a video game and I love it. It was so cool.
And that scene was amazing. That's what we're talking about, is like, this is a hard movie to talk about because there is so much that I like about it. Like, I actually love a lot of it.
And that, to me, that's a thing that's like, they've raised the bar for like what Thor's powers can be. Like, if he can infuse his powers into other beings, it's a great moment in this, but like, now I want to see that more often. Like, that's awesome.
And I want to know what Love's powers are going to end up being. Like, this is someone who's created by eternity, essentially.
Yeah.
and can be a really interesting character moving forward.
Does she continue though? Because when I asked Hemsworth about his kids being in the movie, and he's like, I don't want to paraphrase him, but he basically was like, because he's the one that offered it up. I asked him about his kid running on the side as Thor. He goes, that's also my daughter playing Love. I'm like, what the hell? And so basically, he kind of said in the interview, like, I don't want my kids to, I think this is just going to be a one-off thing. I don't want them to go off and be like child stars. Obviously, like not telling them they can't be, but he just didn't want it to be like a thing like that. I don't know that he'll allow her to continue as not that he'll allow her, but I don't think he's gonna. I don't think she will.
Could be. I would maybe chalk that up to the movie's not out yet, and I'm doing an interview.
Interesting.
Because she was fantastic.
She was great.
Her performance was great, and the way that they ended they end it to where you go, I want to see Thor on these adventures. Like if they come back and then they're like, oh, and she's somewhere else being raised by, like, they didn't really put it in a way where she could just get written off. If they're bringing him back, and then they are, that's what it
does say in the credits. Thor will return. So
I would be kind of disappointed if she doesn't come back, unless she recasts her. Then if he doesn't want his kid
that's
to
what
do
I'm
it,
gonna say. Yeah, if he doesn't want his kid to do it, and we theoretically might not see a Thor movie for years because of things that are already planned, you could just have an older, like a teenage actress.
True.
And also you basically she's. I mean, what she does in this film, that's very
actually a brilliant. Sorry, that's a brilliant point, Sean. It should just be teenage love. I love that.
Good point.
It ended up doing that. Yeah. I thought the love affair stuff with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir was hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it was all right.
Maybe because I hadn't seen Ragnarok in a while in its entirety. I didn't remember that being a significant part of Ragnarok. I didn't remember him and the hammer having such a relationship.
Huge. Yeah.
Because I just remember the hammer getting broken early. Like, doesn't Hela break it pretty early?
But he's sort of depressed over it throughout the rest of the movie at times. And
Cord says that, like, you miss him.
I will say I did love that when they're talking about the relationship, when he tells Mjolnir, protect her. And then that like seals in the hammer. The hammer's like, and that's what it does. I love that. That's why she ends up becoming the mighty Thor and all of that, because like that was his hammer, being true to his loyalty to Thor and protecting the thing that he loved. Like, I thought that was beautiful. I did love that.
I did too.
I also like, it's funny because like a lot of the comedy I didn't like, but the moments when he would like go up and talk to Stormbreaker about like, I'm sorry that I'm cheating on you with that. It's so funny because that's the kind of humor I don't necessarily, I guess it's funny because like I mentioned Taika's humor, but I go back and watch, all the MCU films that I love, and the humor in those just hits differently. Like the Guardians humor hits differently, the humor in Infinity War, and like the moment in Infinity War, is Infinity War or Endgame, where like Hemsworth or Pratt's doing the deepened voice of Hemsworth.
That's Infinity War.
That's funny. Yeah. Like for some reason that works for me. I don't know if it's a writing thing or Marcus and McFeely or the way the Russos direct it. But like I don't mind that type of humor. It's just there's certain bits and jokes in this movie that I just felt like a spoof. I don't know. I just felt like I felt like I was watching like a scary movie version of it.
While we're in spoilers, though, I do want to talk a little bit about like where it leaves us and what's next and that kind of thing. But Sean, I did want to ask, leading up to that, eternity, the concept of eternity. To my knowledge, this is kind of the first time we're being confronted with eternity. Maybe it's been discussed before, like it's come up in conversation in the MCU. But can you talk a little bit about what eternity is? Is that going to keep moving forward?
It is a relatively new concept from what I even understand, because I don't know it a whole heck of a lot from the books at all. So I think it's something that was created for this movie specifically to give Thor something to go after. And I loved the visualization of them when they went into it. It had sort of that, almost like when you went into the Soul Stone, that sort of, or even when Captain Marvel met the High Intelligence. But I don't think she's called the High Intelligence. Whoever Annette Bening played in Captain Marvel. To me, all I really saw it as was a continuation of like, there are so many things in Phase 4 that are dwelling on the afterlife. Moon Knight did it tremendously in episode 5.
Miss Marvel has sort of the ancestral plane things going on in her storyline. Absolutely, yes, and of course Black Panther in Wakanda having the ancestral plane as well too. So and then of course when you put Jane in Valhalla alongside Heimdall at the end of this.
there's a number of properties in the MCU in Phase 4 that are finding themselves really interested with the concept of the afterlife.
Is this gonna be like it ruins the permadeath in the MCU? It's like, well, they're just gonna have a story that's set in the afterlife. Like I'm curious how far they're gonna take it. I'm fine with it.
This is what I wanted to ask. Like, I wanted to ask if you guys believed that Natalie Portman got a send off, like if she got a proper thanks for everything, you're going to Valhalla, or did they put her in Valhalla so that later on Thor can be like, I'm just going to storm Valhalla and return Jane Foster?
What I think would be the ultimate plan. What I think would be the ultimate plan is however long Thor is in the MCU and whatever happens. I think the end of Thor's journey is him dying and going to Valhalla.
Gets welcomed
and him getting reunited with all these people that he's lost. Like his whole storyline now is that he's lost his mother and his father and his loved ones and Heimdall and his brother and all this. Like, and that's the crux of this, of like the opening of this, of him, just trying to find himself. I think that's what they would build towards, and that's why they're putting her there. I think that's why we know, but maybe she shows up again.
That'd be beautiful. We got to talk about Roy Kent. Being cast as Hercules. Come on, that's amazing. I think him interacting with Hemsworth is going to be tremendous.
He's going to look so buff in the next season of
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso. He's going to look so ripped.
So does Hercules have a lasso?
No.
That'd have been funny.
So he has a gauntlet. Wait, what is his weapon that
he has like a hammer or something.
Yeah.
His whole thing is he's like brute strength, right?
That'd have been funny though.
All I want to see is Brett Goldstein against Chris Hemsworth. That's all I want. I think Brett Goldstein is.
I want to see Brett Goldstein deliver lines as Hercules. Is what I want.
Oh my God.
I want to see. Oh, we didn't even talk about this in spoiler free or spoilers, but Zeus was awesome.
I thought Zeus was hysterical.
Oh, I didn't. This was part of my criticism. I didn't love what was that called? The Palace of the Gods or whatever, where they went.
Okay.
To me, it was another part of. I didn't talk about this in the spoiler free because it was kind of spoilery. To me, it felt like it was supposed to be the sequelized version of Sakaar. Like it was supposed to be like, let's introduce them to a new world, but it wasn't as fun to explore, and it didn't really feel that fleshed out. They just kind of walked by some people. Maybe there's more there that I don't know because I don't know all the, characters from the comics. But it just felt like it could have been a lot cooler. I like what happened there, and there's good bits, but like the setting itself felt kind of. And maybe we'll come back to it, given the way that this ends. But it felt kind of
no stakes,
hollow.
Though.
Felt kind of hollow.
Zeus dies and then he's not dead. I'm like, come on, kill someone off for real. I mean, I'm just, I know, but it's
I know what you're saying.
Did they really kill Portman? No.
Well, Gore's
dead.
Gone.
I know, but Gore's not like. Yeah, I guess it's fine. But Thanos is dead. I mean, I get that, but it's like, I don't know. I kind of like. When Zeus popped up again, I'm like, all right. It's like, dude, does any of this mean anything?
I'm all in on more. I mean, to me, that makes sense. He's Zeus. Like, it would be weird that, like, that's a pretty lame way for Zeus to die, even if he's like overweight, old, is supposed to be kind of whatever Zeus, like orgy Zeus. By the way, that's another thing. Sorry. That's another thing. The epitome, the example of this movie does the sin of sequelizing Ragnarok and just doing the Hollywood sequel. In Ragnarok, they mention an orgy once. In this movie, they mention an orgy like 5 times.
Yeah, they do.
Is Russell Crowe the Jeff Goldblum of this sequel then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's much smaller. Again, like I said, it's not a complete sin in that it's not just that story told again. He's not lost on this planet or whatever. It's its own story. It takes those elements and it just rehashes them because, we loved that. And that was a bummer to me.
What's the moment in Ragnarok? I don't want to mess this up. Where like right when Thor meets the Grand Master and they're like, and there's another guy there who's like being sentenced to death. And what does Goldblum say? He's like, he says a line like he's going to forgive him. And then he goes, your life, and then like blows him away. I can't. What's the line?
He says,
he says, it's my favorite delivery in that whole movie.
What does he say? You're right, though. That's great. He says, I relieve you.
I really. Hold on, let me look this up. You guys continue.
Okay.
It's like, I'll set you free from life, and then he
It's
so
such
good.
it's such a
And
great
then she says
line.
when she says the slaves have gotten out, and he goes, "Oh, stop! You know I hate that word." And then she goes the whatever word she said before that, and he goes, "No, the S word." And she goes, "The prisoners with jobs," and he goes, "It's better. Okay, I like it." He's like, "It's better. I like it." He's so good. I love Russell Crowe, but yeah, he's no Jeff Goldblum.
God, someone
really
tell us
good.
that line. It's one of my favorite deliveries. Like he's very funny in that.
He's a lot of fun in that movie.
The melting stick and everything. Like,
All right, let's move on to our blend game this week and continue to celebrate one of the better parts of Love and Thunder, which is Mr. Christian Bale. And I'm going to start with Gabe, who doesn't get to play the blend game all that often. Gabe, where did you go for your favorite Christian Bale movie?
favorite Christian Bale. I went with performance. Remember our challenge is performance.
Yes, sir.
This was very hard. And I don't like playing this game at all, but we play it every week because I think that he has proven that he's just effortlessly versatile, and he can play someone very menacing and terrifying. He can play someone who's a billionaire and a superhero at the same time, and he can feel like a aloof playboy while he's also this incredibly powerful, being. He can play. Ford v Ferrari was one that I really considered, just because I thought he was he disappears somehow. And it's not even like one of his roles where it's this giant physical transformation, which, to give him credit for, I know it's become like a Hollywood cliche thing, but he's done it several times, and it pays off in his performance. And Ford v Ferrari was not one of those, I would say, but he just completely disappears, and that character was so interesting, and I felt like he inhabited it so well. And I've considered that, and on a given day, it could be that. I want to rewatch The Fighter because I saw that one mentioned a lot, and I would put that up there. The Batman, I think, is great and all. I think what I want to land on, which feels like a cliche, and this will change tomorrow, is American Psycho, because I felt like the irony of American Psycho and the earnest sort of portrayal that it needs in order for it to work, in order to be sort of confusing and sort of make you not understand what's real and what's not. I think it's incredibly directed. He gets a lot from sort of the way that they decided to make that movie. But I think he's absolutely brilliant in it. And I do feel bad sometimes picking a role that's so early, because he's done, again, like I've named, he's done so much since then that I think he's only improved on. But right now, American Psycho is the one that I sort of point to as my favorite.
Very cool. Kev,
Yeah.
where'd you end up going
I also went with American Psycho.
Oh, nice. There you go.
I think it's his best performance and my favorite performance of his. I think, it's funny because like when I was in high school, I think you guys probably had a similar situation where like you find out who Christian Bale is and you start going through like his filmography, like The Machinist, and like you start learning about the weight loss, and like he was like, there was a legendary status to Bale before he became Batman. Just about like the lengths he would go for performing. And obviously I've gotten to speak to him a few times over the years, and one of my favorite things I ever talked to him about was Empire of the Sun, just because of kind of like what Spielberg instilled in him and as a kid, and kind of what he took, because he still remembers that very well, and kind of like the lessons he learned from Spielberg and what kind of.
How old was he in that?
10 or 11.
That was 87 when that came out.
I don't know. He was young. There was a kid. I don't remember how old he was. But American Psycho, to me, he just strikes this disturbingly entertaining tone. Like I love watching Patrick Bateman. Regardless if you believe he does commit the murders or not, because the ending is ambiguous, or if it was all in his head or not. Right. I find every one of those scenes to be highly entertaining, and a lot of it has to do with the way he describes music. There's a sequence in the beginning where he kills Jared Leto's character, or towards the beginning when he's playing, I think it's Sussudio by Phil Collins, right? And
Phil Collins, yeah. That
was one of those films that I learned. Those songs became favorites of mine because of American Psycho, and I actually remembered the way, like the factoids that he would give about like this album charted at this number, or like this single was this. And then Jared Leto's like, "Is that an axe?" He goes, "Why, yes, Paul, it is." And like, and just there's a delivery there that is so evil yet comedic in a very weird way that I don't know how he finds it. I know the writing is there, but also his American accent is absurd. It's, I mean, obviously his accents are incredible. I think we don't talk enough about accents. I mean, his accent in that is absurdly great. I don't think I knew he was Welsh until I saw, is he Welsh? I think he's Welsh. Until years later. But
it's crazy when you hear him talk in interviews. You know, I've been listening to him on so many Thor interviews, and I'm always like, wild. Oh my gosh. Yeah. He
is the definition of a chameleon, but that performance is so vulnerable yet confident, but also not confident in a
it's disorienting. Really,
right,
the way he does it.
Very weird how he plays that role, but it's perfect. Like even in a scene where he's like looking in the mirror, checking out his muscles, and he's like having sex, and then like he's talking about Huey Lewis in the news or whatever, and it's like, what I hate this term, was the tour de force. People use that terminology when reviewing movies, but man, what a performance. Like that floored me. And to this day, it's the best thing, my favorite thing he's ever done. And
if you read the book, you think to yourself, there's no way that someone could perform this. Like there's no way that someone could personify this character.
Right.
And he figures out how to do it.
I read, I think I have this right. I interviewed Bret Easton Ellis, who wrote the book, American Psycho. And I want to say, and I think this is right, every murder in that book is based on a real murder that happened. Oh, wow. I believe that he like went through and researched, and like the murders that are taking place in the book, at least, I don't know if this applies to the film, but the murders that take place in the book are way worse.
Oh, they're awful.
There's one in there I'm not even going to go into. I'll just say it deals with rats.
Yep.
That I think is
exactly the one I'm thinking of right now.
That is one of the most disgusting and disturbing pieces. I'm so happy that's not in the movie because it's so horrifying. I don't even know how they would do it.
No,
well, I guess you could do it. You would just what you would do is you would pan up to the face after explaining what the rats are doing, which is disgusting. But anyways, back to his performance in that movie. It's so damn amazing. I'll never look at business cards the same ever again because of that film. It is just, he is in complete control of that performance, and it's incredible to watch. It's like almost like a treat to watch that performance. And it's such a disturbing movie, but it depends on how you view it. Do you think he did it? Let me ask you a question. Do you guys think he did it or didn't do it? Where are you guys lying that?
I'd have to go back and rewatch it to see how it all plays out.
I think it's in his mind.
I'm pretty sure he did it.
The last time I saw it, I think I remember feeling like he did it, but I think I go back and forth on rewatches. Like
the scene when he kills the homeless guy really always disturbed me, and that was the moment where I didn't like the character anymore. And it's interesting because it's so weird to say you like a character who's murdering people, but when you're watching the film, it's a character. But he plays it with such a vibrance. You're right, that it makes it entertaining. It's the same reason why you like watching Thanos, or if a performer brings a certain level to it. But the homeless person sequence later on in the film in American Psycho was the moment where he stepped over this edge where I didn't find him enjoyable to watch as a character anymore. And then they go to this question about whether or not it's all real, and I just choose to believe that it was all in his head. Like that is because I feel like the guy that committed these murders, that character seemed so eccentric and so over the top that I feel like he was playing a game or imagining, daydreaming. But even the beginning, think about the beginning when he's just messing with his face, his routine in the morning. All those things are so.
The director talks about that, the skincare routine, sort of alluding to his sort of psychosis.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right. I think there are a lot of instances with Christian Bale where you can say that he's doing the most acting, and quite often it's incredibly entertaining. If it's something like Vice, where he completely disappears into Dick Cheney, or even The Machinist, and where he lost all that weight, and then when you figure out why he lost all that weight in The Machinist, it's an insane bit. But if I'm actually going with favorite performance, I have to go with Batman Begins. I have to go with the way that he portrayed Bruce Wayne, and it's not just the way that he portrayed Bruce Wayne, but it's the way that he played a man who I was convinced could figure out how to train to become this classic superhero. There's so many Batman movies that just begin with him being Batman already. And to start in the prison and to show this, son of a billionaire punishing himself by fighting these guys to essentially just get training at doing it, to go through all the stuff that he go through with Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul, however you want to pronounce it, how good Liam Neeson was in it. And then his return to Batman and figuring out the scenes in Batman Begins that I love the most. In most superhero films, if I'm rewatching them, I like to skip to the action scenes where I get to see the hero do stuff in the film. And in Batman Begins, I like to see Bruce Wayne putting it all together. I love his scenes with Lucius Fox, where he's figuring out what the Tumbler can do, where he's describing the type of things that he wants the costume to do. I love Christian Bale's scenes with Alfred Kane, with Alfred, Michael Caine playing Alfred. I love his scenes with Katie Holmes. Bruce, to me, is more interesting in Batman Begins because of the way that Christian Bale plays him. And I think it's a really difficult thing to pull off because, quite often, and it's in the best case scenarios where, Christopher Reeves makes Clark Kent just as interesting as Superman, or Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield will make Peter Parker just as interesting as Spider-Man. And I think that's what Christian Bale does in the Batman. And when he's Batman, it's not like I'm disappointed, but I just think he's so cool and he's so suave and sophisticated as Bruce Wayne, that I love him in that. So it might not be his greatest performance of all time, but it's absolutely my favorite to see him be that character.
And you're right that Batman Begins is so good and is such a perfect introduction to both Bruce Wayne and Batman that it's going to be a couple decades before probably anyone tries to do the Batman origin story. Like Zack Snyder was like, what if I'll just do it in the open credit scene? People know what it is. They've seen Batman Begins. And then Matt Reeves was like, what if it's just year 2? What if we're already there? And it was great. And it was perfect. Yeah, that was a great call. That was a great call. Yeah, that's how good Batman Begins is. We don't need these new Batmen to be introduced.
Nor do we have to see the death of the parents. I think we've gone over that one multiple times.
Yeah, you think his parents are dead?
All right, audience picks. Dino Paulo.
Before we go to audience picks.
Sorry. Oh, we're throwing to Jake?
Jake Hamilton on vacation.
Jake Hamilton has a pick. So Jake went with...
Hey, what's up, guys? Jake here, coming at you from vacation. Little sunburnt, a little bit more rested. Sorry I couldn't be with you guys this week, but I did not want to miss out on Christian Bale blend, if only because this one's a little bit more complicated than they normally are, because my favorite movie that Christian Bale has been in is undoubtedly The Dark Knight. But the reason I'm not going to pick The Dark Knight is because that movie is great for a variety of reasons, Christian Bale being one of them, but he's one of 1,000 reasons why that movie is great. And I really wanted to pick a performance in a film that is so predominantly great because of him. And because of that, I'm going to choose another collaboration he did with a friend of this show, Chris Nolan, and I'm going to pick The Prestige because there are so many layers to that performance and why it has to work on different sort of viewing circumstances. He has to perform the roles in one way upon the first viewing, but then also it's got to be a completely different kind of performance the second and third time we watch it once we realize what the twist actually is. I feel like it's one of the more underappreciated films of his career, one of the more underappreciated films of Nolan's career, and there are just so many things to it that every time I watch it, I still feel like I'm discovering things within his sort of nuanced performance that is a lot more difficult than the more showy physical performances, maybe like The Machinist or The Fighter or Vice. There's just so much built into The Prestige, but because he just looks like Christian Bale in it, I feel like we're not giving him enough credit. So I'm going to choose The Prestige because such a huge portion of why that movie works and why it's as great as it is because of how he sort of takes that role and embeds in it multiple layers that we don't even know until we know. So while it's not my favorite movie that he's been in, it's my favorite movie that he's had the greatest impact on. So hope you guys had a great show. I'll join you back next week. I know we got a lot of great stuff coming on Real Blend in the coming weeks, but miss you guys, love you guys, and see you soon.
All right, now let's get to audience picks. So Dino Paulo said Out of the Furnace. Altaf Nanawati.
That's a great movie.
Out of the Furnace is really terrific.
Scott Cooper, right?
Yes. Altaf Nanawati, Anastasia, Zen, Jake, and many, many others went with The Fighter. Ariel Pace said American Hustle. And Michael Kamens went with The Prestige. The reason why I didn't go with The Prestige is just because I think that's more of a Hugh Jackman movie. Is that Hugh Jackman's movie or is it Christian Bale's movie?
Which movie?
The Prestige. I think it's more Jackman's movie.
I think of Jackman more, but yeah.
It's tough,
they're
right?
both great though, you know?
They are, for sure. And I can't tell you why he's so good in The Prestige, just in case you haven't seen The Prestige yet and happen to be listening to the show. Okay, so much participation this week. We want to thank everybody for playing along with Christian Bale Blend. And next week, reach out to us on Twitter using hashtag #BookToMovieBlend. I would assume this is in lieu of Where the Crawdads Sing, which is an adaptation of a popular book that's going to be coming to movie theaters. So tell us your very favorite book to movie adaptation. Use hashtag #BookToMovieBlend or let us know your pick via email at realblend@cinemablend.com. Kev, not to divert from the formula, but guess what just landed in my inbox? A preview link for the trailer for Clerks 3.
Okay.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm going to tell you something that's even crazier than that once we get off mic.
Oh, okay.
Because I think Sean and
Kevin has the script for Clerks 4.
I think Sean and I are weirdly spiritually connected, and I'll explain this on the out.
I don't doubt that, actually, for a number of stories that we've had, but it literally just landed in my inbox, and I thought, ooh, I want Kevin to know that. All right, leave us a review. If you guys enjoyed the show, leave us a review on Apple iTunes. You can email us a review at realblend@cinemablend.com, and that's where we will read it here on the show. Our next premium episode, we're going to play a game called What Year Was It? So again, check the description below to find out how you can sign up for the premium service, which will also get you, as I mentioned, a newsletter every other week, an ad-free version of the show, and then the Monday show that drops. So in the meantime, listeners can follow us at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach. And the show is at Real Blend. We will talk to you guys next week. The Fablemans.
Hockey pads.